What if walking away from your own family wasn't heartless? What if it was the only way to stay sane? For years, people have been guilt-tripped into believing that family is everything, that no matter how toxic, how manipulative, how damaging, you're supposed to stick it out because they're family. But here's a hard truth that society doesn't want to talk about. Sometimes, love doesn't live in the same house as DNA. And cutting off contact with toxic family members isn't cruel, it's self-preservation. You're not alone if you've ever said, "Why do I feel more drained around my own mother than I do around strangers?" Or if you've asked yourself, "Am I the bad one for wanting peace over family?" The psychology of going no contact isn't about revenge, drama, or some overnight decision made in anger. It's the last resort after years of emotional abuse, trauma bonding, and feeling like the designated scapegoat child. And still, you carry the guilt, the shame, the fear of judgment. This video will peel back the layers, slowly, deeply, and walk you through what really goes on inside the mind when someone decides to go no contact with a toxic family. You'll understand the mental gymnastics, the survival instincts, and the healing that begins only after the silence. Because surviving toxic family relationships, that's not rebellion, that's resilience. So, before you judge yourself, or let others judge you, stick around. This might be the validation you didn't know you needed. Why going no contact feels unnatural but isn't. Most people don't wake up one morning and say, "I'm done with my family." It starts small, avoiding certain conversations, skipping phone calls, dreading holidays. There's this internal war. One part of you craves connection, the other wants peace. That's the psychology of going no contact. It feels like betrayal, but it's actually self-preservation. We've been wired to believe that cutting off toxic family is unnatural, but what's unnatural is enduring psychological abuse just to keep the peace. Think about it. If a friend lied to you, mocked your pain, or manipulated your emotions, you'd eventually walk away. But when it's a parent or sibling doing it, society tells you to just forgive. This is where emotional neglect and trauma bonding play their tricks. People stay stuck in dysfunctional family roles because they fear judgment more than they fear continued pain. But real healing starts when we question those inherited scripts, not when we blindly follow them. There's also a biological factor at play. Attachment systems that were never meant to deal with narcissistic mothers or emotionally abusive fathers. The brain is programmed to seek closeness with caregivers, even when those caregivers are the source of our trauma. That's why so many people feel guilt and shame when setting boundaries with family. But here's a liberating truth. Feeling bad doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It often means you're doing something radically right. The myth of unconditional love and the guilt trap. One of the most powerful tools toxic family members use is the myth of unconditional love. You've probably heard it. But we're family. We don't give up on each other. Sounds noble, right? Except in reality, that phrase often becomes a weapon, a guilt trap used to keep people in cycles of psychological abuse. Cutting off toxic family doesn't mean you've failed at love. It means you've stopped confusing love with loyalty to pain. Many people stay in abusive family relationships because they're terrified of being labeled cold, ungrateful, or selfish. But here's the twist. True love doesn't guilt trip, gaslight, or ignore your boundaries. If you constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells, second-guessing your worth, or being emotionally manipulated by a narcissistic family member, that's not love. That's control wearing a mask. And breaking away from it doesn't make you heartless. It makes you conscious. This is where emotional survival kicks in. People often confuse survival instincts with rebellion, but setting boundaries with family is how you stay sane, not how you seek revenge. Think of it like choosing not to keep drinking poisoned water just because it came from the family well. Let that sink in. Honestly, if this is resonating with you so far, maybe hit the like button. It helps more than you'd think. And if you're the type who likes exploring these truths deeper, you might want to stick around. The scapegoat child and dysfunctional family roles. Every dysfunctional family has a script, and sadly, many of us are handed roles we never auditioned for. The scapegoat child is one of the harshest roles of all. This is the person blamed for everything, even when they're the one trying hardest to keep the peace. In toxic family dynamics, the scapegoat becomes the emotional dumping ground, while narcissistic family members play the victims or heroes. It's a setup designed to break your spirit and keep the cycle running. Over time, the scapegoat internalizes the belief that they are too sensitive, too dramatic, or just difficult. Sound familiar? That's psychological abuse dressed up as tough love. It's not unusual for scapegoated kids to grow into adults who doubt their own reality, question every decision, and carry a deep sense of shame that isn't even theirs. And when they finally go no contact, the rest of the family often acts shocked, as if the one who endured the most should be the most forgiving. But here's where things start to shift. Once the scapegoat sees the game for what it is, the whole structure begins to crack. Recognizing these dysfunctional family roles is a turning point in healing from toxic family environments. Some people find clarity through therapy, others through journaling, or even books like Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson. However you get there, the point is, you're not broken. You were just cast in the wrong role. And breaking out of it, that's just the beginning. Guilt, shame, and the emotional blackmail of staying loyal. One of the hardest parts of going no contact with family isn't the silence. It's the noise in your own head. The guilt, the shame, the voice that whispers, "What if they're right about me?" That voice didn't come out of nowhere. It was planted through years of emotional blackmail disguised as loyalty. Toxic parents and relatives often use phrases like, "After all I've done for you," or "You'll regret this one day," to keep you emotionally chained. This guilt is especially heavy when childhood trauma is involved. If you grew up in a home where love was conditional, you probably learned that pleasing others, especially family, was the key to survival. But that survival mode doesn't serve you forever. As adults, we must recognize when being loyal is really just code for self-abandonment. It's the emotional equivalent of staying in a burning building because you feel bad for leaving behind the furniture. Here's the kicker. Guilt is often a sign that you're doing something different, not something wrong. It means you're breaking generational trauma, refusing to pass the pain forward. You're choosing emotional survival over performative loyalty. And while that may upset those still clinging to dysfunctional family roles, it doesn't make you the villain. In fact, it probably means you're the one doing the hard, soul-level work that most people avoid. And that leads to a whole new kind of freedom. Choosing peace over family and creating your own definition of home. There comes a moment when you stop asking, "Will they ever change?" and start asking, "What do I need to heal?" That shift is powerful. Because at some point, surviving toxic family isn't about proving anything. It's about protecting your peace. Choosing peace over family doesn't mean you're bitter. It means you've grown tired of sacrificing your mental health for people who confuse proximity with love. Family is not always love. Sometimes it's just shared DNA and a whole lot of unhealed pain. Going no contact or even low contact is really about redefining what home means. For many, it means building chosen families, friends, mentors, or even online communities where you're seen, supported, and safe. It's okay if you no longer want to spend Christmas pretending everything's fine. It's okay to create new traditions that don't involve walking into rooms where you're only ever half accepted. Healing from toxic family requires new blueprints and the courage to stop showing up just because you feel guilty. And here's something not enough people say. You're allowed to build a life where your peace isn't up for debate. You're allowed to set boundaries that protect your joy. That's not cruelty, it's clarity. That's not running away, it's running towards something better. And yes, there may be moments of grief, but they're nothing compared to the quiet relief of waking up and realizing you're finally free. And now that you've made it this far, let's bring it all together. So here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away. Not out of hate, not to hurt anyone, but because you've finally chosen yourself. Going no contact with family is not a decision made lightly. It's a process, a deep unraveling of everything you were taught about love, loyalty, and identity. But here's the gift. It opens the door to a version of you that finally gets to breathe. Now ask yourself this. What would your life look like if peace was your baseline, not your reward? What if you stopped chasing approval from people who benefit from your silence? What if you no longer apologized for setting boundaries? The psychology of going no contact isn't about cruelty, it's about emotional survival. and survival is the first step toward creating a life rooted in clarity, intention, and real connection. If this video stirred something in you, something raw, maybe uncomfortable but real, don't keep it inside. Leave a comment, share your experience. You never know who else needs to hear your story. And hey, if this kind of truth-telling speaks to your soul, go ahead and subscribe. No pressure, just good vibes and deep dives. And when you're ready to keep learning, I'll be right here.